We need change. We've had so much inflation. Prices have gone up. My husband's in manufacturing, has lost his job. I'm the main breadwinner now. Just so much chaos has gone in on the last 4 years. Nobody can afford to live anymore. My daughters, even though I live in Boca, to walk down the street and it's not safe anymore.
A few moments later.
Finally have their answer. Andy Thompson will be the next mayor. Within the past hour, the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections completed a recount in one of the closest races the city has ever seen.
A new week, a new election disaster for the president, this time in Trump's own backyard, in a district that overwhelmingly supported him in 2024. In Boca Raton, Florida, voters elected Democrat Andy Thompson as mayor, making him the city's first Democratic mayor in more than 30 years after a razor-thin contest decided by, 5 votes? That alone would be notable, but the location makes the result far more politically significant. Boca Raton sits in one of the most Republican-leaning areas of Florida, right in the backyard of Trump's Mar-a-Lago political base. When a city like that flips, even by just a handful of votes, it tells you something about the political mood that we're seeing across the country.
Kaylee, I don't want to be surprised or blindsided in November. Should we be honest now and say, are we in danger?
Yeah, we are. If you look at historical trends, absolutely. The party that's governing wins choices. It tends to be a referendum on that party and they lose seats. So absolutely, it's an uphill battle and we have to be frank about that. But here's where I disagree with Harold. Elections are not referendums, they are choices. And when you look at the polling when given a choice, Republican, Democrat, this is an NBC poll, Republicans are beating Democrats plus 27 on border security, plus 22 on crime, plus 8 on immigration, and it's even on the economy. So if Republicans can litigate the issues and not the distractions, they end up winning. To Joe Manchin's point, as he told me on Saturday, he said if Democrats want to ever control again or be the majority or have a president who's a Democrat, they have to get with commonality of what is going on. You got to listen to guys like John Fetterman, not guys like Chuck Schumer. But John Fetterman is dismissed out of hand by party leaders like James Carville, among others. And, secondly, I would just say Jim Messina has a point. What's the governing strategy of Democrats? Because you could win this election. You could win the midterms because it's a historical trend and, TDS is your strategy, but TDS cannot be the strategy in 2028. That's not going to take you to the promised land. And finally, I would just say Democrats have to figure out where are they on Medicare for all. The left wing of the party wants that. The mainstream does not. Where are they on Israel? Where are they on government-run grocery stores? They've got a lot of divisions to work through. So for all the Republicans problems Republicans have,
I'm for Israel. We can answer
You're the Fetterman wing. That's, the smarter wing.
Now, as I've reported time and time again, already this year alone, we have to look at patterns here. The Florida result is part of a broader movement that has been quietly unfolding since Trump returned to the White House. Across the country, Democrats have flipped more than a dozen local and state legislative seats in areas that previously voted strongly for Donald Trump. In New Hampshire, Democrat Bobby Boudman recently flipped a rural Republican state house district that Trump had carried comfortably in the previous election.
Democrats in New Hampshire also added to the party's string of special election wins last night. Democrat Bobby Boudman defeated Republican Dale Fincher to flip a state legislative seat in a district that Trump carried by 9 points in 2024. The Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee says nationally, Democrats have flipped 28 seats in red and battleground territory just since Trump's election.
In Georgia, if you go back to last year, Democrat Eric Gisler flipped a state house seat in a district that Trump had won by double digits. And if you look at what's happening in Georgia right now, Democrat Sean Harris forced a runoff in the hunt for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat.
NBC News is now characterizing and is projecting that this race will go to a runoff, that both Sean Harris, Democratic candidate, Clay Fuller, Republican candidate, will secure the top 2 spots. No one else can get up into that one of those top 2 spots. And these 2 candidates will advance to the April runoff. So again, that's NBC News's official characterization based on all the stuff that me and Adam have been working through right here. And again, they're not making any characterization about first, second place here, right?
Not place, just that Harris and Fuller will be the advancers.
They're just saying these will be your top 2 and no characterization on who will finish first or second. But again, absolutely possible here. In fact, if you just based on the the vote trend that Adam has been sharing there, I think very good chance here that Sean Harris can finish in first place here.
I mean, individually, these might look like local political stories, right? But together, they begin to tell a larger story. Political analysts often look at special elections and local races as early indicators of what's going to happen later that year. And we're looking ahead to the midterms. And right now, the shift appears to be moving in one direction. Democrats have flipped countless seats nationwide since Trump returned to office, while Republicans, well, they've struggled to generate similar gains. That kind of pattern, it usually signals something deeper than individual campaigns. And don't take it from me. Go ahead and ask Republicans like Rand Paul how they're feeling about the midterms.
Talking about how worried are you that a split Republican Party will only mean losses in the midterm elections? How are you expecting the midterms to play out? And if you do lose the majority, doesn't that put the GOP behind the eight ball in terms of getting anything done, in terms of your priorities?
I don't think a split party is the problem. I think high oil prices will be a problem. I think the 2026 elections already, we are behind the eight ball as far as the electoral process. I think if you add in high gas prices, high oil prices, and if we are still bombing Iran with kinetic action, people don't want to call it war, but if there's still kinetic action that causes oil to be over $100, I think you're going to see a disastrous election.
Wow. All right, Senator, we'll be watching your work, certainly. Thanks very much.
And in Boca Raton, the campaign that flipped the mayor's office focused heavily on things like affordability, housing costs, and local development concerns, issues that voters increasingly say are tied to national economic policies, and they're unhappy with the current administration's handling of. Those concerns are showing up elsewhere as well. Across several recent elections, Democratic candidates that have focused on rising living costs, economic uncertainty, and local infrastructure or housing issues have been successful.
Right now, I'm very disappointed in the way this first year is going.
What's disappointing?
I think there's been a lot of focus lost on the goals of what this country could be and should be, and there's a lot of division.
It's very scary to think about stepping into this new era of, conflict with Iran. But I think in keeping with your votes, it's voting for someone who's going to protect us little people down here, the teachers and the community worker.
This is a big deal. This was a Trump-endorsed candidate in a deep red district. He should have been able to close the deal, surpass that 50% threshold. In fact, Clay Furl just had a visit from President Donald Trump last month, and now these two candidates will head into a runoff April 7th. You'll have those who will argue that it was too crowded on the right and that Fuller will now have the consolidation of all of those votes. But we sat down with Democratic candidate Sean Harris, a former Brigadier Army General. He's running on the issues. He's running on a grassroots campaign. He's going door to door. Like so many states, there's been redistricting here in Georgia. So there are some voters in West Cobb that didn't know they were in his district. He's running on the fact that lots of people are facing forever chemicals in their water. And he also said, listen, I'm a supporter of concealed carry, so the Republicans can't run on old talking points. Here he is.
It's all wrapped around the economy. It's wrapped around affordability. I know Donald Trump don't like that word, but the reality of it is people that are not rich are working 2 and 3 jobs trying to make ends meet, and they still don't meet.
And when those themes resonate in districts that previously leaned Republican, it suggests that voters may be reassessing the party in power. And who is actually caring? It suggests that voters may be reassessing the party in power.
Very conservative district, but that's part of his message.
Charlie, former President Biden won your state in 2020. Again, talking statewide, Trump swung it back in 2024. But we've seen Democrats make gains in other GOP districts this year. What are you doing to ensure that your party can achieve lasting power in the state of Georgia?
Well, you mentioned before, back the same night the Virginia governor's race and New Jersey governor's race happened, we won the two first non-federal statewide wins in 20 years, electing 2 Democrats to the PSC. And then after that, we followed that up with flipping a Trump plus 12 state house district. So we've got the momentum here because we are building through organizing, a direct spend. We're taking an argument to the people of Georgia that, frankly, they ain't got to put up with this. And here in our state, Republicans have been in charge for 23 years. The American dream is less attainable now than it was 23 years ago when they took power. That's the message we're bringing to voters. And frankly, Anna, they don't need us to tell them that. They know it because they experience it in their own lives. And that's why when we have elections here, they're coming out to vote against Trump and vote against this Republican leadership because they're sick of it.
Charlie Bailey and Tia Mitchell, this is an election to watch, certainly, as a little bit of...
And as I've said before, you can't say everything's fake news when wallets start getting light. The American people are feeling the pain caused by this administration. Political shifts often start at the local level. They show up first in city councils, state legislative races, and special elections. And historically, that's how that wave begins.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.